Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the HR of the Human Resources Committee on the 4th of June 2025. If I can just remind everybody to please use your microphones when you're speaking, as the meeting is being webcast. And we're going to start with the first item on the agenda, which is the appointment of Vice Chair for 2025-26. Does anyone have any nominations for the appointment of Vice Chair for 2025-26? Councillor Connolly.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose Councillor Swainston as Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Connolly. Do we have a seconder? Yes, thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Just to let you know, Councillor Swainston, we've just proposed you as the Vice Chair. So I hope you're content with that. That's great. So all those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Are you voting in favour? Oh, you can't. Oh, okay. I thought you sometimes could, but anyway. So that's carried. So thank you very much. Item 2, apologies. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, we have apologies of absence from Councillor Butcher and Councillor Deffley.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to pages 5 to 13, which are the minutes of the 5th of February 2025 meeting. Are members content for me as chairman to sign these minutes? Are there any comments or corrections before we go to a vote on that? Councillor Swainston? Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Connolly, all those in favour? I think that's everybody, so that's carried. Thank you very much. So we're moving on to Chair's announcements. I haven't got anything very much to say apart from welcome to Ellie Swainston. Ellie Sparrow. Right, Ellie Sparrow. Sorry, Starling. Right, I'm going to concentrate now. So, and Peter Dickinson for health and safety, and Michelle Aves, obviously. Yeah. So, are there any declarations of interest? So, item 5. No declarations of interest. Okay, so I'll move on to item 6, which is the health and safety annual report. So, if I can hand over to Peter Dickinson to introduce this, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is the annual report that's produced covering aspects of safety throughout the council's activities for the previous year, and nothing is of significance, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take.
Okay, so are there any questions on this report? Councillor Connolly?
Thank you. I've got a couple of points. 3.2, page 19. I was pleased to note the review of outsourced contractors. Capital projects are going to be reviewed for their inspection and compliance. That looks really good. And I'd be interested in the outcomes. I don't know if you would be able to feed that in slowly over time as they happen to see. That'd be all right.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. And also, could we confirm that sports and leisure management, SLM, will be included in those reviews? I think it's because I read on 5.0 says accidents on site managed by SLM no longer included in our data, but I guess we would be monitoring their compliance. Would they be part of that programme?
Yes, we would. We certainly do that, as well as their operational processes. We also oversee the accidents, just in case there's anything that we want to flag up with them, if there's any unusual patterns or anything unusual that has cause for concern.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Lovely, thank you. And then actually also on page 19, 524, we're now reporting incidents and near misses, which is fantastic. It's really good news. I had some concerns about that last year. But the examples of the incidents are really quite serious. And on page 148, there's a wider definition of it. But it includes potential harassment and some of the abuse that our staff get on the phones. So I wondered if you're collecting data on, because it's sort of suggesting incidents and near misses, it almost is downplaying it and saying we'd support them, but actually I guess I'd be interested in the data and what we're doing to prevent it as well.
Yeah, I mean, we do record them because they are, when they're quite serious, it's the impact that it can have on the member of staff that's been receiving. And so we have to be mindful of that impact and have measures in place to look after that person. And everyone has a different degree and a measure of how much they can tolerate and take. Now, some of the older officers that have been here for a considerable time working in a particular environment, over time they filter out, but we still like to have the copy of the report made out just in case we get a persistent offender. And that's what the idea is, to designed to identify a persistent offender and take appropriate action to mitigate that person's impact. Not that we would, it's not about withdrawing a service, it's about managing that expectation, because people can have a variety of different reasons why they may react in the way that they do, and we have to be mindful of that as well, and empathetic. It's not personal, it's not aimed at you personally, it's because they're representing the council, and their anger is usually directed at the council. So yes, we're very mindful of that. We do encourage people. Sometimes they do feel silly reporting it because they've heard it before and they just brush it off. But we do like to encourage people to report it so that we can build a picture of how frequently it's occurring, and if it's hitting a particular section or a service area. So you tend to find revenues and benefits are one of the highest areas, followed by planning, because they're very hot subjects. They're very personal subjects to some people. They get very passionate about an application for a planning proposal, or they've been notified that they may have been their benefit may be reduced for some circumstance. So they're normally, their first reaction is anger. Quite often the staff who do have training on dealing with difficult people and customers can bring them back down, and they will help them to manage the difficulty and hopefully restore the relationship. And they do work very hard on that. So, but yeah, so we're actively encouraging people to report them so that we can build a better picture.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that reply. Are there any other comments or questions on the health and safety report? Okay, I think we can move on then to the recommendations, which are to consider the annual health and safety report 2024-25 and provide any comments, amendments to the service manager of HR and OD and the health and safety officer. So do I have a proposer? Councillor Wilcox, the seconder, Councillor Connolly. All those in favour? Thank you. So that's carried. So now we're moving on to our policy updates. So if I can hand over to Ellie to introduce the report to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. We are put together a schedule to review all of our policies. We always make sure our policies are legally compliant. Employment law is updated twice a year. So if anything changes in terms of the law, they're updated. But sometimes, due to everything else that's going on, we don't have the time to say, is this the best way of expressing what we're trying to get people to do? you know, if something's complicated, people tend to just shove it to the side and ask for help rather than deal with themselves. So we have started a process with Unison of reviewing our policies, starting with the top 6. It's only 4 here, but we're working on another 2 that are used most frequently, to try and make them more user-friendly, clearer, so that we don't get in a situation with a manager and a member of staff being at odds because they've got a different interpretation of what the policy is about. So in order to get here, we have used best practice. We have gone to other organisations who have big policy teams, mostly made up of solicitors, as well as looking at our own experiences to come up with these policies. They have been to the local joint panel, which is a panel comprising of officers, Unison and members. And they've been there and they were happy with them. So they're now here for you to have a look at. So the ones we're looking at are sickness absence. And when we go through the stats for last year, you can see that we do have a few concerns, but sickness has increased in some areas. So we want to make sure that we absolutely deal with absence as it happens, rather than things get to a point where someone phones up and says, oops, so-and-so's been off for 3 weeks, what do I do? So we're trying to get ahead of that and support staff to come back to work as soon as possible where it's appropriate. So sickness, absence, grievance, the expenses policy to tidy that up, to make that in line with HMRC rates, etc. And the appeals policy. We are trying to take out of all policies things that are repeated in each policy. So the appeal process should be the same, irrespective of what policy you're using. And the more it is repeated in different policies, the bigger chance of a typo or something not quite adding up. And then someone says, but over there it says that. So we're taking it out and just having an appeals process. So they are the 4 policies. As I say, they've done the rounds. We have used best practice. We have used, where necessary, checked with solicitors. So, you know, it's all been looked at. So have you got any questions for me or comments?
If I could just ask, so is this part of a sort of ongoing piece
Yes.
of work? So this is the first 4 policies, and then
Absolutely.
the next ones will
So
be.
we're going to go through all of our policies. Some of them are used once in a blue moon. Clearly, that'll be the blue moon that comes up when we look at those, because we just don't have the capacity to look at every single policy. So we're looking at the ones that are used frequently. We are putting a full retention schedule together. So you'll note on the policies, it talks about the change, when the change was made. And we're going to have that on every policy from now on, because we've got policies that have been around since 2020. And yes, they're legally compliant, but are they written in the best way for people to actually understand? Probably not. So there will be a schedule, and as we do things, we will bring them here to say, right, this is what we've done now. But we are working closely with Unison because we need to ensure that what each Herts Council requires as an employer is represented, but as well as what staff need from us as their employer. So yes, so there will be a schedule.
And roughly how many policies are there that we're likely to look at, just to get a sort of feel for that?
So we probably have, I would say, about 10 policies that are used on a regular basis. And so we're starting with the ones that can be like, well, they can be distracting if situations aren't handled. So if there's problems between staff and there's tensions between individuals or with managers, or somebody's been off sick repeatedly and their colleagues are saying, oh, hang on a minute, they're never here. So we've looked at the ones that are quite emotive if you don't sort that situation out, and we will gradually work through the rest. So, for instance, the recruitment policy, we're going to do a root and branch of the whole process, a review of the whole process. So we've got a new applicant tracking system in, but we want to look at our onboarding process as well before we redevelop that policy. There's no point doing it on the as is if we know in 3 or 4 months' time it's not going to be like that. So, yes, I would say there's about 10. In total, we probably have about 20 policies, but some of them are rarely used and some of them have already been updated last year. So the maternity policy was updated to include surrogacy, adoption, fostering, all of those things were put into that policy. So it's a family friendly policy, not just a maternity policy. So those are clearly regularly used, and we were approached by a number of staff who said, but in my situation, this is what I'm doing. Can that be covered? So again, we developed those. So some have already been done, some yet to do. And as the law changes as well, those updates will go in.
Thank you. It seems like there's an awful lot of work gone into sort of getting these up to a good standard, which is so that they're easy to use.
Yeah.
Are there any, Councillor Connolly?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, the simplification and trying to make sure things aren't repeated. So I think it's a really good job that you've done. I only had one small one in the sickness absence policy, 6.3. You should provide clear reasons on the nature of the illness or injury to your manager. I was quite surprised at that. I mean, if it's under 7 days, it's self-certification. And I'm coming from a bigger organisation where if you filled in your self-certification or got a doctor's certificate, you would send it into HR. So your manager doesn't actually have to know. I mean, most people will say I had the flu or a cold, but if it's something more personal or embarrassing or something they simply don't want the organisation to know about, presumably legally they don't have to tell the manager.
This is about as much when they first ring in to say, I'm not going to be working.
Yeah.
Because I think any manager deserves to know why their member of staff isn't working. So happy to review it. All of these will be road tested anyway. We'll review everything we do because actually we can't just say that's it. And then if there's a certain bit not working for everybody, but we can look at it. But in terms of good teamwork and in terms of being able to accommodate someone's return to work, even after a week, if there is something they have had that could be potentially contagious still, even though they're fit enough to work, we just need to know.
But a manager wouldn't have that expertise either. That would be occupational health, presumably.
Well, it depends. If someone comes back from COVID and they've had COVID several times and they feel able to work, we would say to them, we don't want you in the office. Absolutely work, but please don't come into the office. So that type of information helps a manager manage their resources. Clearly, if it's something very intimate, then there's a discussion to be had about what a manager should and shouldn't know.
How does the employee have that conversation?
Well, they can phone HR at any time, and that they know that everybody knows if they've got a question to ring the HR number, and we will give people advice.
Perhaps it could have something like that in it then, because I think it reads here and I think it read somewhere else the same statement. And if somebody's really anxious about something, I mean, I'm thinking of somebody might be going through fertility treatment, for example. That's the last thing they want is their manager knowing, because they might never get pregnant. You know, so it's deeply.
There will always be exceptions where people don't feel comfortable.
Perhaps it should say that
Okay,
then.
that's
there may
fine.
be if I don't know if it's a difficulty with that, they should contact HR. But or occupational health, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we don't. That doesn't. We're fortunate. We're small, so it doesn't
Yes, I
happen
know,
as
yeah.
often. I take your point. If something is embarrassing, we are, as part of our mental health training as well for staff, we are offering private conversations with people if they're feeling uncomfortable talking to the manager or colleagues. So yes, we can certainly review that. My view is that in most cases, people are not concerned about their manager knowing. However, I take your point. If it is something that you don't want people to know about, then you might want to have a conversation first to say, what do I need to tell you? and how do I need to do? One of the things is if it's likely to keep reoccurring,
Mm.
then the manager has to know because they have to plan. You know, you can't. So yes, there are some uniquenesses we can do. So I do take your point, Councillor Connolly.
Thank you.
And I guess on that, the managers will have training in how to
So
handle
one
that
of the
sort
things-
of situation.
Yeah, so one of the things I've asked Claire to do, Claire is one of the HR advisors, is to arrange some lunchtime sessions to go through these policies with managers. So you'll note that they've got a flow chart. We're trying to make it as easy for everybody, including the member of staff, to be able to use them. So we are going to be arranging some drop-in sessions for people to come along and just go through things. And once the summer's over, silly season obviously is coming up on us. We want to operate, if we've got the resources, we want to have some surgeries where people can come along with tricky cases they want to talk about and get that advice face to face and maybe talk to their colleagues about, well, I've got this. Have you ever had that situation? How did you handle it? And learn from each other as well. So
Thank you. I think that's very sort of sensitive. And that very, very helpful. Councillor Swainston.
Thank you. Yeah, they look like very good systems to me. And as you say, it's important for people to have things that are easy to follow. I'm just wondering if there will be some way of reviewing how the systems are applied, because you know, some managers are much more empathetic than others. Some will find this quite challenging because they'll see it as a very
yes,
sort of tick box thing, and I've got to get it. So
yeah. And yes, we will monitor them. They will be given every opportunity to do things right. And then there is a time when you say, actually, this is not good enough. We have to manage the performance of managers as well as managers managing staff. So, you know, I'm hoping that, and I, you know, it's not a major problem. So I'm sitting here talking about this, that most managers will do the right thing and follow the right process and grasp the nettle where necessary, even if they need someone to hold their hand and coach them for the first time they do it, because they don't come across some of these situations very often. You know, it's now and again, it's like having to reread everything. So where there are issues where a manager just doesn't get it, then they will be having a conversation with me or their director to say, come on, how are we going to enable you to follow these processes? What is it that's stopping you? Because that needs to be handled, because it's not fair on members of staff to see things being mishandled. The same as if a member of staff mishandles a planning application or something, you expect a conversation to say, how did that happen? That makes sense?
Thank you. Any more questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for all of that, you know, detailed work. So could I have a proposer to, the recommendations are to approve the revised sickness absence management policy, to approve the revised grievance policy, to approve the revised expenses policy, and to approve the revised appeals policy. So could I have a proposer, Councillor Connolly, and then a seconder, Councillor Swainston, and all those in favour? Well, that's everybody. So that's carried. Thank you. So now we're moving on to item 8, which is on pages 97 to 112, the Employee Health and Wellbeing Report 2024 to 25, and the Annual Turnover Report 2023 to 24. Is that right, or is it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just going to hand over to Ellie to introduce those two.
So this is we've rounded up the whole 4 quarters into a year's report for you, just to discuss where things are going. We know that absence management costs the authority, any organisation, a lot of money. So to handle it properly, so We have seen a few things change and shift this year. We do have give some background. We have an aging workforce with a huge amount of staff over the 55 mark. That's not to say they're unhealthy. It's just to say with age often comes I can't get out of bed this morning type illnesses. But we have also, without trying to minimize that, we had quite a few serious illnesses in our workforce in the last 12 months, which has been distressing for the individuals and distressing for their managers and their colleagues. So there is a way of handling that as well. And we have seen an increase in mental health related, mostly short-term conditions. I don't want to say illness because a lot of people don't like to think of it as an illness. So their inability to attend work because of mental health. So we have done a number of things, and I'm just going to give you a sort of recap on it. We have a number of staff who have attended a 13 week, sorry, that's a really unlucky number, mental health first aider training. So we now have a group of mental health first aiders. We already had a group. They quite often, they were self-selected or they selected in rather than this is the type of person we need. So people who wanted to help but weren't always necessarily available to help. So we have those, and Peter has been corralling those staff. So we are converting an old room into a safe space for staff who are feeling anxious, who would like to talk to somebody. They don't want to talk to the manager. They don't want to talk at home. Quite often the mental health issues, the stresses are stressors at home, and the workplace tips them over. There's very few. I think we've had one report of work-related stress. So out of all of the stuff that's going on, it is about people just feeling overwhelmed a lot of the time. So we are converting a room for the mental health first aiders to have. We are not spending any money on it. We are recycling everything from Charrington's house and from the other, that way, the old building, anything that we can get our hands on, we are making look pretty, so we can use that room. So we have that. We have a new employee assistance program. So we've changed provider to get a fuller experience for people. So we have access to all different types of counsellors for people to talk to if they need to talk to people that outside of their own family network, or a lot of people do. A lot of people don't want to talk to their family about how they're feeling because it's quite often their family that are causing them the issues. So we have done that, and we also we are introducing, I've written the policy and it's been signed off, or process, it's been signed off. We just need to I need to train the mental health first aiders, but we are having we haven't decided. The working title is Should I Stay or Should I Go? To quote The Clash. But it's an opportunity to talk about, I'm not feeling it for East Herts Council anymore, but I'm not sure why. We have a number of people who leave us and come back. But we do have people who go and they resign for a reason, and the reason is absolutely in their head the right thing at the time. But then it gets to the point, and I know people have said to me, I'd like to withdraw my notice, but I'm too embarrassed. I've gone too far. I've said too much. So we want people to have the opportunity to talk about those anxieties they have about, I don't know whether it's time for me to leave or not. Because sometimes it's a bit like the 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, when you wake up and it's like, oh no, it's awful. And then you wake up in the morning and you've actually made a mountain out of a molehill. And quite often people have done that, but they don't know how to step back from how they're feeling and analyze it. So we're doing that as well. So we think, looking at our exit interviews as well, that will be a useful thing to help with people's short-term mental health issues. There's undoubtedly people have longer term issues. They then have quite often, they're being treated by their primary physician, but also a specialist. And at those times we use occupational health with all illness, long-term illness, to say, how can we help this person? What can we do? What reasonable adjustments can we make to enable them to return to work? So our aim is always to get people back to work where it's possible, and do whatever we can to do that. Clearly, reasonable is the big key word here. It's not reasonable to pay someone X amount of money and they work 1 day a week for a year when we're being paid full time. That's not reasonable. But there are other adjustments we can make. And Peter often helps me with those and helps managers with those. So in terms of this then, so yes, there are some increases. We aren't as bad as some authorities by any means. We know where our issues are that we need to address, and we are trying to put measures in place to address those issues. So I hope you can accept the report for what it is, and be assured that we are acting on where we're concerned. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ellie. Any comments or questions on this report? Councillor Swainston?
Thank you. I think it's a very thorough report, and we have been banging on for a while really about having things to compare us to other organisations. So it's great that we've got those comparisons in there now. It seems that we're doing pretty well on the whole, actually. And I think all public services at the moment, they're under resourced, and that is a lot of the problem. People want to do this sort of work and then find they can't do it as well as they'd like because of all the pressures, and as you say, all the pressures at home. So I really appreciate all that you're doing. It's great.
Thank you, Councillor Swainston. Councillor Connolly?
Thank you, Chair. I can't open the documents. I can't find the bits that I was wanted to talk about. But I want to Ellie, to stick with what you were just talking about mental health and stress. So 5.5 and 5.6, it says 11% mental health. I mean, it seems strange to call it mental health when I think we're saying mental ill health or mental illness, and then 6.4% stress. Who decides those categories, and is there a definition? Because if somebody's stressed, they're often have anxiety and be suffering from mental ill health. So I find it quite difficult to separate, and I wonder the fact that you're giving us data for both, what your separation is. I mean, is mental health a doctor's diagnosed condition? But then stress can cause those, can't it? Like anxiety.
So our definition is stress is when somebody is feeling overwhelmed. They are unable to cope with the day-to-day stuff, and normally but mental health is often when people have a condition. So these are general terms that are used across the local government, but it's often more than. So it's clinical depression and things like that, rather than I'm overwhelmed at the moment, this is all too much. So that's how we tend to, and people do, like you said earlier, people will tell us what's wrong with them. So if people say I'm stressed because of this, then that's how we record it. If people say I'm now going to see a psychiatrist because I have these issues, that will fall under mental health. And as long as we consistently do it and we don't mix and match, then we have an overall view about where we are.
Yeah, I think that was my concern.
Yeah.
So from what you're saying, it's actually coming from the employee.
The employee or their primary healthcare practitioner in form of a certificate, or if we go to occupational health, they will give us based on the information they get from the employee, and quite often the employee's primary physician, because quite often they will go to the doctor or whatever specialist to get the diagnosis and prognosis from them, and then they will pull it all together for us and say, right, this is what you can do to help this employee.
Thank you.
That's right, isn't it?
Any other questions? Councillor Wilcox?
Just one about the mental health boot camp. Was that 13 weeks full time?
No,
All right.
no, sorry.
I was going to say that's
It was
that's a
very
course and a half.
intense.
No, they're all clinicians.
Yeah, they were 3.5 hour sessions with one day where we all got a face-to-face meet, and it was held online, but with very good tutors who all had mental health backgrounds, clinicians, and seasoned experts
Yeah.
who had dealt with a very wide variety of mental health conditions, everything from someone just feeling blue, someone who has been made redundant, has the weight of the world on their shoulders, to the more extreme, suicide. And it was very, very well attended. It generated a lot of discussion, and it was very enlightening. We had access to a lot of tools to enable our role, which is to be a non-judgmental listener. And obviously we're not clinicians, we can't prescribe, we can't diagnose, but you look for the triggers, and the aim is to guide somebody in the right direction to seek that level of support. They may not have spoken to somebody. If it's a bereavement, have they received bereavement counselling? If it's a family matter, have they been able to talk to anybody in confidence? And the emphasis was very much on how we present ourselves to somebody, and we sit, we listen. We're not there to make a judgment. We're not there to compare our issues with their issues. It's their opportunity to open, hopefully feel comfortable, and us to be able to guide them and recommend that, that there are lots of agencies available that can provide it. And part of that, as Ellie's mentioned, is having a dedicated safe space where people can come. It'll be furnished, as Ellie said, from the comfortable stuff that we've got here, and we'll give the room a fresh coat of paint, of course. But the idea is it's not meant to feel like the workplace. It's a relaxed environment, somewhere where they can sit, decompress, and quite often you will start to pick up if there are any concerns that you may wish to refer to those more specialist clinicians. But yeah.
So going back to the point, it was 13 weeks, and we deliberately chose an organisation with a pedigree in delivering this type of stuff, because we didn't want it to just be a load of names on a notice board. If you don't feel well, ring these people, because we've got, I suppose, anyone in any organisation will say that quite often notice boards are just stuff that's been there for years and they become part of the furniture, and we were keen that we didn't want it to be that. So we're doing that. And also, as I say, the new contract we have, the Employee Assistance Programme, has grief counsellors. It has counsellors there to talk about money issues and marital issues and family concerns. So we are trying to give people as much access without having to sit in an NHS queue waiting for a counselling session, which unfortunately for some people is too late, and they don't need it necessarily. If they had something immediate, a counselling, even though it's telephone based, it helps.
Sorry, just one more. So you talked about having a list of names on a wall somewhere. How do people know who their mental health first aiders are?
Sorry, there will be a list, and I'll check it twice. There will be a list. One of the things we agreed with the leadership team as part of this was we went round the building and said, God, there's some old stuff on here, isn't there? And like in the back of some of the ladies' toilets, there was stuff talking about something that happened last year. So what we're trying to do is get better at communicating with staff. So yes, there will be a list, but we will do other things to bring that list to life. So it just won't be a dead list on a wall, which is why we're having the room as well, which is why we're introducing these should I stay or should I go, whatever we call it, things to bring it to life. So it isn't just a list of people on a wall. It is something far more. All right. Good. So can I put your name down?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter, for just talking us through the whole process. Because it sounds as though it sounds like it's something that's been very well thought through and will be beneficial. And but it's at an early stage, and so perhaps there'll be a review of how it's going and how people are feeling about it, the experience.
If quarter on quarter we review, if the numbers are small, then we won't bring them here because people might be watching at home thinking, oh, they're talking about me. And I don't want that to happen because that will just make any anxiety worse. But we will, as with everything we do, we will review. If it's not the right thing, we'll either stop it or we'll change it because we don't have enough capacity in the organisation to do things that aren't adding value. So, and especially as we move forward, you know, the concerns that our staff have are going to potentially grow with LGR and devolution agenda, you know, so that, and we just want to make sure that we've got stuff in place to support people when they need it.
If I could just add that Ellie and I have had discussions about expanding the number of mental health first aiders, but we want to look at a very considered approach because there's lots of very well-meaning people, but they may not necessarily have the experience to deal with or to approach. So we want to look at the best way that we can identify people who are interested, but are also going to be able to, you know, sit and be, like you say, distant, but empathetic. So we're going to consider that.
We definitely want a different process than just I want to do that, because people do things. It's like I used to work in children's social care. And people want to be social workers because they've been in care. That's not necessarily the right reason. For some people it is, but not for everybody. So it's about making sure that people are doing things for the right reason and it doesn't impact on them. Because if you start taking everybody else's worries on and you cannot keep that professional boundary, you just make yourself poorly as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. Thank you, Councillor Connolly.
Thank you. Just as you said that, it just pinged into my mind that people who do counselling need debriefing. So have you got that in hand as well?
Not yet. That's the honest answer, not yet. I am talking to my colleagues across the region about how they handle it. Some of them in counties where they have a children's service department have psychologists and they can do professional supervision. We don't employ anyone like that, so we're looking at how we might do it. The other way we might think about exploring, we're not thinking about, we're exploring options, is to think about the employee assistance program. Is there anything they can do to provide that clinical supervision, or is it something perhaps that the new occupational health providers that we are currently tendering for can provide? So very, very aware of it. If somebody's problems are too deep-seated anyway, would not put a mental health first aider in front of them, would be thinking about another option. But yes, people do need to offload the things they hear. So.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that. And are there any more questions or comments? Okay, so let's go to the recommendation then to consider the annual Employee Health and Wellbeing Report 2024-25, including the actions in Section 8, planned for 2025-26, provide any comments to the Strategic HR Lead. So I think we've done that. Could I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Seconder? Councillor Connolly? All those in favour? That's everyone, so that's carried. So moving on then to item 9. So this is a report for the Learning and Development Review 2024-25, and this is prepared by Emily. So thanks to Emily as well for preparing that. And if I hand over to Ellie to to introduce it.
Thank you. We have quite a limited budget compared to other organisations. So what we try and do is, where we can, do self-learning. We have e-learning, but recognise the value of face-to-face interactions for some types of learning. Not everything can be done on an e-learning platform. So this is what we've done this year. We did work with a company last year to provide some training for our service manager level. It was, a lot of it was virtual though, so it wasn't very well received, but we have all the material. As part of the deal, we got the material. So I am currently recruiting to a new HR advisor post, and one of the specialisms that I want them to have is the ability to deliver learning and development. So that we can be more self-sufficient in some of the stuff. My background is learning and development. Used to work for AXA as their UK training manager years ago, and I still do odd days for another company. But I am here and I'm leading a whole HROD function. Don't know how long I'll be here for, but I'm here doing that, so I can't deliver training all the time. So we are looking at different ways of doing it. As part of our budget saving exercise, I've had to offer up some money because it is the way it is. So there are some things we're doing. So you will see that you've got in this the money we had last year, how many people have been trained on various things. Our ambition this year is to shift that a little bit towards some more face-to-face stuff. We have developed a train the trainer type approach. We want to use some of our own internal experts to upskill their colleagues. A lot of what people need is knowledge. So knowledge is best delivered from the corporate or the organisation you're in, because you know they have the corporate memory, you know how things work. So what our ambition is for people with their manager to agree if they are the right type of person to upskill other people, and then we can develop their ability to facilitate learning sessions. I'm not saying they need to be a management development trainer who stands at the front and does all of that, but somebody who can successfully convey information to other people in a way that they understand and that they can use. So that's one of the things we're trying to do. We have, or there is a 2-day team manager training program that we want to run for our team managers. Sorry, we had a future managers program. We are currently reviewing that to see what we need to change. We're very keen on growing our own through our learning and development approach, but it is going to be on a the priority will always be statutory learning that you need to have in order to do your job. So currently all the directorates, I'm calling them that because we've got directors, are going through their personal development reviews, and they are producing a spreadsheet for each of their service areas about what learning is required from a statutory point of view in order to satisfy government requirements to enable them to do their job. Then what would fall under continuing professional development, because one of the things we know is that a lot of people think CPD is about a course, and actually CPD could be about attending a meeting for your manager. We're trying to get people to think differently about CPD. I want to go on this course, it's £1,500. Yes, but you could go to that meeting and represent your manager and get the same outcome. That's the sort of conversation we're trying to have. Skills development is another one, and obviously technical development is another. So managers are identifying who needs what, and then we'll have to go through and prioritise who gets what because of the money, and then find creative solutions to meet the gaps. So for instance, Unison have a learning pot. We've already talked to them about maybe we could do some joint stuff where it makes sense to do that. So that is our learning and development. We are committed to it. We have a people ambition strategy which has development all the way through it. to make sure that staff feel valued, are able to do their job, and have the ambition to stay with us and see the next stage of local government through.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the learning and development? I wonder if you could say a bit more about the apprenticeships.
Oh, yes. We currently have 4 apprentices. As we go through this next phase of transformation, we haven't put anyone on an apprenticeship for a while because we know that we're changing the target operating model of the authority. So as we do that and as we go through each tier, we will be identifying where we have opportunities to introduce apprenticeships, because we have to allow 20% off the job to do learning. I know there are ways around that, but people expect that if they're going to be an apprentice. So we are looking at how we apply that. Part of the stuff we need to do in terms of learning, we will try and use the apprenticeship levy for wherever we can. The government have announced they're removing level 7 for anyone over 21. Having said that, they're not removing it until the end of January next year. And anyone who's already on a programme at level 7, who's 21, also who's over 21, will be guaranteed completing their apprenticeship. So I can only imagine that a lot of people in my type of position and other positions are thinking, we need to start spending our levy more than we have, and can we use that? So we are looking at all of those things. So Emily, when she's back, poor old Emily's on jury duty, bless her. When she's back, we're going to be working on how do we do it? How do we do it better? But as we go through each part of the transformation programme, we will be looking to say, is this an opportunity for an apprenticeship? And looking at already with environmental health, I put Paul in touch with East Suffolk, who are piloting some new environmental health apprenticeships. So if we can piggyback on the work other people have done, we absolutely will, because it doesn't make sense not to. So we're looking at that, and we'll be looking at other roles that could be a planning role, because we might have to move roles around a bit. We do have some arms and legs, and by that I mean we don't have enough of a thing for one person. So we might have 2 or 3 things that we don't have enough of. We put them together in one job. We have jobs like that at the moment. As we go through, we'll have to identify that and say, what do we do to make sure nothing falls through the gaps? And so the apprenticeship programme could help us with that. And yes, we need to, but we need to plan it. We can't just knee-jerk react and say, here, I have an apprenticeship, because it's not the right thing to do necessarily.
Thank you. And how long do the apprenticeships sort of typically last? Is it 2 years?
It does depend on the level, but I've got a payroll apprentice who is absolutely awesome. By the way, I put him forward for Apprentice of the Year this year because he's awesome. He has made a massive difference. His is 2 years. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Wilcox.
Just one, the IT training, the cyber police training, and I work in IT and I find that really good, that one. That's, I assume, funded centrally by IT, so it's not coming from...
It's through the partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are there other courses like that through partnerships that we can...
So what other partnerships we've got? Well, the IT partnership, we get anything that comes out of IT, and so does Stevenage. We have no other formal partnerships in the learning arena. However, I work closely with the region and with other colleagues. So, for instance, SAFs, the fraud team, are doing recruitment fraud training for all of my team and some managers, because recruitment fraud is getting bigger. We have instances where we advertise a job and the information is data mined off websites, and then you get all of these people applying thinking, how have I got 90 applications for this job? And then you look and think, that's why. So there is something, so we do, where we can, work with HCC on things like the fraud, yeah, that's where we are at the moment. So as we move further forward in local government review, and we understand, hopefully, by the end of the year, what shape we might be, who we might be with, then it opens up more opportunities to start some more joint working. So yeah, so that's what we will be looking for.
Just on that recruitment question, I was just that's slightly off topic, but I was wondering whether you're noticing the effect of AI, whether you're getting a lot of very similar applications because people are all using the same program, whatever it is.
Yes, in answer to your question, you can spot them a mile off because most people don't bother to check whether it's American spelling or English spelling. So there is a place for AI in any organization. When you are trying to sell yourself as a person that is credible, that you want someone to pay you X amount of money every month, we need to know how you articulate yourself. We need to know how you think. We need to know all of those things about you that make you the person who will come and work in our organization. And that person isn't an AI person, that's you. So with applications, when we're looking at them, we need to know who we're going to be shortlisting. We need to know a little bit about them in terms of how they express stuff, how they talk about stuff. So there is a place for AI, but there is also a growing trend of putting stuff together very quickly and chucking in an application form. But to several companies all at once. So I understand that for some people, they are really keen to get a role. They haven't had a role for a while, maybe. But yes, we are careful and we do look to say, do we believe this person put this together, or has it been produced by a bot of some description?
Thank you. Yes. I mean, AI doesn't have any personality, does it? It's just a tool, really. Are there any more comments on the Learning and Development Report for 2024-25? Okay, so let's pass to the recommendations. So we've considered the Learning and Development Report for 2024-2025 and provided comments to the Strategic HR Lead. So can we have, can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Connolly, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Swainston. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. So now we're moving to the annual turnover report 2024-25. So this is pages 125 to 138. So Ellie, if you'd like to introduce this one as well, thank you.
So this report is obviously about our staff turnover. We closely monitor staff turnover. We identify if there are trends. We use our exit interviews to help identify trends. But in the main, again, we are in a position where we are a small fish among a lot of small fishes in a small pond, even, because that's how it feels. So we have jobs that we need, like planners, and they are very difficult to attract because the growth that has been put forward for housing in the UK, with the garden town element now that was thrown in, we want another 10 garden towns. All of those things are making planners difficult to attract. So we do tend to attract, a lot of our planners are quite newly qualified, and they stay with us for 2 or 3 years and get some experience, and then they go to a bigger authority, which is fine because we can't offer them the opportunities they can get in a bigger authority, and as long as they add value while they're here. So we accept the fact that we do get a turnover of planners because you can't make people stay with you if they don't want to. And the last thing we'd want to do is fall out with people because they might come back one day and they might be the next head of planning or the next service manager. So we are very mindful of that. We do have a market forces supplement policy. We do apply a market forces supplement to planning jobs to make us at least within the ballpark of other authorities, because some authorities are offering a lot of money for planners. So that does add to our turnover. So you will see that in the last quarter, I think we lost 6 people from planning. There were a variety of reasons, 2 of which were I'm trying to find the right words. Unfortunate, very unfortunate and very upsetting. But some were who had left of their own volition. So I don't want to go into any more detail than that because I want to honour the people involved. But it was an unusually high month. In the HR function, we lost 2 people. One was retirement and one was personal circumstance. So quite often when people leave, it is because they've either been offered a load more money somewhere else, which happens a lot, because we're all fishing, and if somebody has more reserves and can offer people a bit of a golden handshake, then they will, because they need to meet their statutory requirements as well. So in terms of this, we have that will support this, and I'll bring this next time, is we've had a staff survey and we've talked about to people in that staff survey about why they stay, why they would go. So we're feeding all of this in to help us understand our figures a little bit more. So we do have an ageing workforce. I've told you that before. We were seeing people starting to think, I think I might go now. What I think we will see in the next 2 years is people thinking, I'll hang on and see what I'll get. So we might see some of the things where people are leaving, we might see that move back a bit, because I think people will become, to use a non-technical term, stickier, and stay where they are to see what happens with local government. Now, logic tells everyone that if we are moving, even if we're coming together, that everyone who delivers a frontline service will still be required to deliver that service. Irrespective of what shape the organisation is, that will still have to be done. So, but some people still, National Health at the moment are doing a Mars scheme where they're asking people if they want to go, rather than be made redundant. We will never get to that position because we just don't have we don't have all the stuff we need sometimes anyway. But there are a lot of people are looking at local government and civil service at the moment about, you know, reducing and everything like that. And so I think people will start staying, some of them, rather than jump ship. But I don't know. But I'm just thinking about what happened last time we went through this. So and we certainly found that happened. So I think the reasons for leaving, yes, we've got a higher percentage this year. In the last 12 months, 15.7. I think some of the reasons, like retirement, a lot of people left for personal reasons. Some people changed their career. There were 2% of that was dismissal, which means we are using our policies to do the right thing quite often for the individual as well as the organisation, actually. So we are actually, you know, we know what's happening and we're trying to work with it. Can't do anything if people get offered a bung to go somewhere else. It's just not something we can compete with. So yes, so that's where we are. Recruitment costs, you know, recruitment is expensive. It takes a long time. It takes longer to recruit than it does to resign. Unless, you know, even if you're a chief exec, you know, the whole resignation period is predominantly shorter than it takes to recruit. But so that's why we see a lot of vacancies. We have vacancies because we're holding them, because we know we're restructuring. So there's no point filling roles that might not actually be that shape anymore. So we want to avoid redundancies where possible, but we might have to reshape some of our organisation as well. and we have savings to make. So some roles have been identified as perhaps we don't need, and if they've been vacant for over 6 months, then the question is, should we just use it as a saving? And then that saves us saving money somewhere else. So we do monitor it all the time. And yes, sometimes it looks worse than others. These are, a lot of this stuff is a moment in time. So if you came to us the next week, 5 new people might have started and it looks very different. So yes. So, but recruitment costs, we try and keep them down. We've got a new applicant tracking system, which is far better than our previous one. It enables us to shortlist a lot easier. And everything we have, or Emily has done all the templates, so everything's automatic. So you get to the next stage and then this happens. And so it is very good that way. And it's easier for people because they can upload their CV as well as put in a personal statement as well. So we are working on the next phases to see if we can anonymize our applications to make sure there's no unconscious bias going on. So we're looking at how we might do that, or at least trial it, because it's important to make sure that things. But the biggest thing for us at the moment is, and I'll be totally honest about recruitment, we are having quite a few people from overseas apply for roles, and we're not a sponsoring authority, and we don't do that. So we've changed. We have a killer question now that right at the start when you go in is, have you got the right to work in the UK? We are not sponsors, so we're trying to. Some people will try and egg that a little bit and still go through, but we are doing what we can to make sure that our applications are genuine, that we can genuinely look at, because we can't look at people who don't work here or don't live here or have only just arrived here. If we can't sponsor them, we're not big enough. The cost is too big for us. So we do try, we use all the web boards. You can see that we've got the list on here of all of the website, the job sites we use, but we do use professional publications where it makes sense. So with planning jobs, we will use the planning, professional publication. We use the MJ for things like lawyers and things because we know that they're not going to go on Indeed. You know, so we do use them, but obviously we use them carefully because the cost is, there's always a cost to bear when we do that. So yes, we currently as well, just quickly, we do try and make people aware of our total reward package as part of our offer, because not everything for some people is about the actual, this is how much I earn a year, but these are the other benefits I have. So we do look at total reward as well. So, and we try and promote that as much as we can. So, yes, so we are working as hard as we can. We are trying to get to people or give them the opportunity to talk before they resign and see if there's anything we can do about that. We are looking at the skills we need and seeing how we can provide that upskilling in-house to make people want to stay. So we're doing a number of things that will assist our retention, but bear in mind, actually, it's unhealthy not to have a turnover of staff either, because then you just don't get any new ideas on new blood. So the other thing, just quickly, that we don't have on all of these things is comparators with other authorities. I was telling Rachel earlier, we are part of it's a software package called Infinistats that the local government authority encouraged us to use. It was going to be compulsory for every authority to use had the Conservatives stayed in, but now it's optional. We have signed up because we can get data about East of England, we can get data about you know, any region or the whole of the UK. What people are doing now as they gradually come on is, as we get more and more data, it becomes more and more something you can actually look at and say, yes, we can absolutely compare an apple and an apple now. So we are taking part. It's quite intensive at the moment, isn't it? We've got so many surveys, but the good thing is, if you ask me a question, I can then go and ask the question and they send it around to everyone and I get everyone's answers. So, you know, it is a good thing and it's reasonable. It's a reasonable cost. It's better than us trying to have a gentleman's agreement by saying, can anyone help me? And then a month later, you haven't heard anything. So that will help with keeping an eye on some of this stuff as well. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ellie. And I think that's one of the things that we really appreciate is being able to have that sort of comparative data. I think it's going to be very useful. Are there any comments or questions at this point? Councillor Swainston?
Just to say, I thought the information from the exit surveys was really encouraging because it does seem very positive on the whole, people's views of the working here. So that's great.
And indeed, in the staff engagement survey, over 80% of the people said they liked work, which is a really high number. Now, whether it's because they're the sticky ones that want to see if they can get some redundancy, I don't know, but that's encouraging. We're having our staff group look at those results, so I can bring that next time to say this is what we're doing as a result of that, but that will support some of this stuff as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? I just wanted to ask, I mean, obviously we're trying to have as many retained staff as possible, but how much are we having to use agency staff?
The agency staff usage is higher in planning because we can't have jobs covered. You know, it's a bit like any statutory function. You have to have those jobs covered, and if we have to use agency, then that's what we have to do. I would like to see if we could have a memorandum of cooperation across the region where we work collectively together to try and at least cap some of the costs of. We've done it for social workers and it worked well there. I think it's something that for the future, and especially as I think we need to understand what the future footprints are before we can have those discussions. But it is agency is definitely the highest in planning.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any other comments? Okay, so the recommendation is to consider the annual turnover report 2024-25, including the actions in section 11 plan for 2025-26, provide any comments, and we've done that. So do I have a proposer? Councillor Wilcox, and a seconder, Councillor Connolly. All those in favour? So that's carried. And now we're moving on to item 11, which is the Human Resources Q4 Statistics 2024-25. So over to you again, Ellie. Thank you very much.
So I guess this is really it sits underneath what we've just spoken about, really, because this was obviously the roll up of the whole year. So my view on it is that had we been able to do it in a slightly different order, I'd have brought this before I did the roll up. But anyway, so we've talked about what our challenges are. This is you know, the sickness absence figures there are what they are. The percentage of lost time is 9.1%, but that's quite a lot of longer term things that make up that. Short term sickness continues and is a very seasonal thing as well. When we start getting to September, when the kids have gone back at school after 6 weeks off, that's when we start to see short term absences rise. So, and there are times of the year where it's always going to be more, certainly short term sickness stuff. Long term sickness we continue to have. We've got 11 in Q4 who have been off a long term. We are actively working with all of those staff in one way or another. So whether it be through occupational health, whether it be through trying to understand how we can help people get back to work, or at least work a little bit to therapeutically get their way back into the office. But some things, clearly, that's not possible, depending on what the illness is. But we do actively do that. Recruitment, we've just spoken about, it's the same. Market Forces Supplement, we are looking to work with East Suffolk, or we're looking at their offer for environmental health workers as well. The other thing we talked about earlier, isn't it, and it's not in here, and I should have mentioned it, and I apologise, is we are looking at how we can work with some of our education providers within our footprint about getting people interested in coming to work in local government. So that will be a big piece of work because it will require a lot of officer time. But Hertfordshire Futures, that used to be the LEP, have done work on this. So very keen on seeing how we can work with them to try and increase our 16 to 24 age range, because that looks a bit sad compared to our 55 plus age range. But we do want to encourage people to be in the public sector, even if they move after a while to another authority. It's about, we now have to collectively think, how can we make the public sector work? Because it's just going to have to be how it is. It's going to be about collaboration, partnership, working. It's going to be all of those things. So trying to attract people to understand it's not just about, what was it called? What was the one with Hyacinth Bouquet and with Richard and the council? Keeping up appearances, yeah. There's still a lot of people that think councils are just about people like that and bins. So we need to educate people a bit more about the professional opportunities there are. And obviously apprenticeships will help with that as well. So we are doing what we can for that. So we also have a strategic partnership with LinkedIn so that we can get our jobs in people's faces. So they follow them around. They can't get away from us. So we are doing as much as we can on that as well. The turnover's not been bad in Q4, I don't think. I told you about the 6 in planning. That was an unusual, an unfortunate blip. But again, stuff happens and we have to try and get over that and do something about that. So that's fine. We have in Beam, we are still recruiting to Beam, which is good. We have a huge response when we advertise for Beam. So that's good. We managed to get it open, which was good. I can't remember how many volunteers we had in about 3 weeks before we opened, but it was a lot. So we did all of that. HR worked with them on that, and we continue to do so as well. So that's good. Vacancies, as I've said, are still being held for a number of reasons. Towards the end of the year, money's a bit tight. Maybe not fill a role for a couple of months. As I say, this is a live, dynamic situation. It doesn't stay the same from one day to another. Because Samantha, who works for me, might come in tomorrow and there's 5 new starters sitting there ready to be set up. It's just one of those things that changes on a regular basis. So we are talking, well, for Q1 we're planning, we are starting, or we have started to review any Market Forces Supplement arrangements we have in place. So my payroll administrator, as part of his as part of his development, is undertaking that piece of work as part of his learning. So we will have that done. I don't think the situation is going to change, but we still have to do the research. So we're doing that at the moment. I say we're reviewing the end-to-end recruitment process. We are hopeful to have a new HR advisor so we can spread the work more, because when the previous health, HR and OD service manager left, he used to do casework as well. Unfortunately, I'm doing some of that at the moment, as well as the other stuff. So we want a new HR advisor because the work that will come up through transformation and LGR will double what we do, because there will be a lot of work to do. So so we will at that point we will be able to bring some of this stuff to life because we want to be dynamic. We want to do stuff. We're very ambitious. So we need that extra resource, and we need to develop, I need to develop my HR team as well to be able to do some of the stuff that I do. So we will be doing that as well. The 2 days manager essentials boot camp, it got cancelled earlier in the year because of capacity. I'm still hopeful of running it in July, but then I'll run the first one, and hopefully I'll have someone that can come with me and watch it and get ready to take it over. But we're still very keen on developing our managers. So we're continuing to review policies as well. So we will get a schedule, and Peter's already started working on that for us. Our HR administrator will be quite instrumental in pulling things up and saying, right, this has got to happen this month. So we're very keen on doing that. So that's really, we've spoken about all of this stuff we aim to do anyway. So that's that. Peter, your health and safety for Q4. Is there anything you want to pull out of this, or I don't think it's much of note, is there?
Nothing of significant note on the during the last year. Obviously, there've been developments since then with the approval of Martin's Law, which will be coming in. Government have given 24 months in order for organisations to implement it. Hertford, Beam Theatre have already begun that process, so they're already well ahead and thinking about how they're going to implement it. And I'm working with that team on that piece of work as well. So, no, nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, thank you very much for that rundown. And could I just ask, Peter, before I just ask you to talk about the safety committee minutes, is there anything, who does Martin's Law, what kind of organisations does it relate to, or buildings, or who does it?
Predominantly the entertainment venue. It was bought in following the Manchester bombings for premises of who have over 200 in occupation. So it will affect Beam, for example. Although, to be fair to Beam, in its previous incarnation, Hertford Theatre already had a maximum capacity contingency plan already there. It was never called into use, fortunately. But it's incumbent now on any organisation that has a venue to have arrangements in place for how to preserve and protect people from harm and injury. So it's previously known as the Terrorism Protection of Premises Act 2025. So the law's been enacted, but government have given 24 months for organisations to get their training, procedures, processes up and running and in place. And it's basically to enhance public safety, better preparedness for protection. It applies publicly accessible locations with a capacity of 200 or more people, and to certain events, with some exceptions for places of worship. So it's about a reasonable and sensible approach to, if you've got 300 people in a venue, how would you manage? So it's about, the key aspect is going to be training for people who work in that environment, managing a large volume of people, evacuating them, or evacuation if they can't go out. The other encouraging aspect to that is that Beam also communicates through the town link. So if something is happening at the far end of town, they have a network where they contact each other, so they can already be on a readiness before anything approaches them. They can put safety measures in place. We're looking at some other measures that are not obvious safety measures, so they'll be designed in to blend in, but their actual purpose is to prevent someone from perhaps driving a vehicle, which seems to have become an instrument of choice of late in various different countries as well as our own. So it's thinking about those kinds of things, which is sad that we have to, but we can do it in a way that doesn't cause alarm. That's the last thing we want to do is make people feel they can't enjoy the facility that we've got. And it's about ensuring it's, safeguarding those patrons, the people who come in.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. And is there anything that you want to add on the safety committee minutes or pull out?
Obviously, High Oak have now joined us. They've now occupied the old building. So we've got them. They've got them in, and we've made arrangements for them in terms of parking provision. Access has all been discussed and covered, and they have a representative now coming to safety committee. So we can share that information with them as well. We've briefed them on our safety procedures so they know where to go in the event of the fire alarm going. So far, everything seems to be fine. It seems to be very well occupied because there's quite a few cars in the section of parking that they have. So that's encouraging, and they're very, they have very good open dialogue with them. So that's going very well.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on any of these elements? Yeah, Councillor Wilcox.
Probably should have asked this earlier on. When you're talking about attracting people 16 to 21, do we offer any kind of interns or placements over the summer holidays for students or?
Not at the moment, which is why I wanted to work with Hertfordshire Futures, because they've got a model. So one of the models we're quite keen on is getting young people who are about to either leave sixth form and go to university, or through going through university deciding what they want to do. A model that they've used that I think would work for us is inviting a number of young people through their educational provider to come and spend a week here in the summer holidays, and they do a business game throughout the week, but they also get people who are expert in their fields to come in and talk about, this is what planning's about, this is what it looks like, these are the opportunities, and try to engage with young people that way. We do occasionally have work experience, but it tends to be who you know sort of thing. Bring your child to school sort of. Sorry, not to school. That would just be weird. Bring your child to the office type thing. So we don't have we don't have that. Clearly, when we invite a young person in that's not a member of staff, there are safeguarding concerns that we have to be mindful of as well. Not a lot of people in this building are CRB checked or DBS checked because they don't need to be for their role. So there isn't. So when we start to think about all of this future talent and nurturing people, there's some of the issues we need to face as well, and consider how best to do it. But the inviting them in for a week, that would be managed and supervised, and I would be very very certain that we could safeguard those young people as well as give them a good experience. So now that the LEP is not the LEP and it's Hertfordshire Futures, I want to make contact with them again to see if we can do that. But again, as we build the new organisation, we can be thinking about how can we do this? How can we do that? So, yeah.
Thank you very much. And yeah, so we have to think about the new people coming in as well as people, sort of training up our young people and giving them that experience. Okay, so this is, I think we can, are there any other comments? No. So let's move to our recommendations, which are to consider the Human Resources Management Report for Q4 and provide any comments to the HR officer stroke head of HR and OD regarding the content or formatting of the report. Could I have a proposer? Councillor Connolly and a seconder? Councillor Swainston? All those in favour? That's everybody, so that's carried. Thank you very much. And the final item is urgent items, but there are no urgent items, and so that concludes tonight's meeting at 8:30. Thank you very much.